Hey, my name is Nathan. I'm an operational manager for Decathlon Brighton, and one of the questions I get asked quite frequently is how do you create a CV that looks professional and enticing to an employer? So the first thing we'll cover is what is a CV or what is a resume. A CV is a document to which you can put information on your experience relevant to the job you're applying for. In most case scenarios, people make a CV with all the experience that they have. However, I'd like to dissemble this notion and give you a better way to make a CV that will give you better opportunities to getting the job that you apply for. So, when making your CV, the first thing that you need to be aware of is the relevance. By putting every single job that you've had in the last 10 years in a CV that is relevant or has information that's relevant of around 3 years, it isn't the most efficient way to go about it. If anything, what I would be doing is making sure that I look through all the experience I have, understanding the market for the job that I'm going into, and then putting the exact specification or the exact jobs I know are closest to the job I want to get into a new CV and sending it off to the employer. What this does is it allows you to be able to show your employer the best, show them the best foot forward and really give them the information that is most relevant to what they're looking for. It then allows you to also, in the interview room, be able to specify or zoom in on the information from a few specific jobs rather than trying to collate 10 years of knowledge in one interview. Another thing also to be wary of or to have in the back of your mind is if you do put all your information into one CV, even if everything was to be relevant, it's always good to make sure that you can find at least a top 3 or 5 to make sure that you reduce the size of the CV, therefore allowing the employer or whoever's hiring to feel more enticed into looking into your CV. The second thing that I would recommend for making a professional CV or resume would be to have detail or to create detail through your CV by investing in something that we call KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators that we use specifically in retail, hospitality, but you can find it in all working sectors, which allows you to understand what your job role is, but then also understand how to measure the performance of your job and then use this to create detail. So, for example, in retail, one of the KPIs that they use quite frequently is average transaction value and units per transaction. This is mainly seen in high-end retail, such as Moss Brothers. They use ATV and UPT quite frequently. If you want to use ATV and UPT to describe how good you are or how much detail you have on the job role, let's say, for example, a sales advisor at a luxury brand, you could use the average transaction value to make a smart objective or a smart objective scenario, which you can put in your CV. And that shows you have an understanding of the KPI. For example, to increase your KPI or to increase your ATV, one of the things you need to do is to upsell more, add more items onto a transaction, allowing you to increase the value of the transaction. The smart objective is what is the simple? The simple is I add more products to my layout, making it more enticing for a customer and creating a better customer service journey. The second thing is measurable. How did you measure it? You can talk about the tools that you had. For example, you could talk about Oracle. Using Oracle, you can find out the datas for each individual person and then how you found out the data that you're increasing the ATV. The third thing is it attainable? Yes, it's a very simple action, putting more products into layout, aligning with your manager, understanding whether you can do it or not, and if not, what you can do better, whether it's on a customer service level or on the layout level. And then, is it relevant? Yes, it's relevant because it increases your average transaction value. And then time bound, you can measure it throughout a month. This smart objective gives a lot of detail, but then it also shows how you can use it or use your objective making skills to then apply it into another job role, even if it wasn't to be retail. And then the last thing I would say, which is quite important when you're making a professional CV, is the layout. One thing I would avoid is using multiple colors in a CV. Having the simple black and white format, even though it looks as if you haven't put much effort into the appearance side of it, it is the best. All these CVs with different colors like pink, green, or yellow, or purple, is one quite distracting. It's quite an eyesore for the recruiter. But then also it shows a sort of opposite of professionalism. It shows that you've put more time into making the CV look good in a very, how I say it, in a physical aspect, instead of really working on the detail of the CV. So even if you did have a CV that had the two previous points, which is relevant and then descriptive and detailed, having a colorful CV is the first thing that the employer will notice, the recruiter will notice, and that will put them off seeing the efforts that you put into the other aspects of the CV. Though there are some different employers, for example, in different brands, maybe cosmetics, that may want CVs that have desirable colors that show you are of I don't know, a specific commercial mindset. For example, it must look good if you have a CV with a pink background. But if you are just looking to increase the professionalism of your CV in a job that doesn't require you to be ultra commercial or ultra creative, then I would say stick to the black and white copy. It really does help out, and it will not set you out, but it will allow you to have more distinction to the detail and relevance you put into your CV. Now, I'll also add a fourth point, which has just come up, and I think the fourth point when making a professional CV is don't lie. Lying is probably one of the worst things to do, especially when making a CV, because if you do get invited to an interview, you will get blacklisted. If we understand that, okay, this person has clearly made up the information that they're talking about in order to land themselves into a job role. In most walks of life, yes, you can fake it till you make it, as they say. But if you clearly just write different things on your CV in order to appear a certain way, it is a complete red flag. I'm not sure about the viewers watching, but for myself, if I was to work with someone who claims they can do something or doesn't ask for help, but in the last minute will then show that the work is incomplete, it is a complete turn off, and it really just dissolves the trust that a manager could have with the person that they're working with a colleague. So lying is a no zone. Please don't lie on your CV. But yeah, I don't think there's much else to talk about really. Yeah, I think those are the four things I'd like to mention when making a CV. With myself, I've had a CV, or I first made my CV when I was 16, and I had no experience, which was probably not the best. One thing that I did do in order to get some experience was to just volunteer. Volunteer or use the experiences that you have outside of school or the experiences that you have in your day-to-day life to create your CV. I think it's a pretty big misconception that if you have nothing to write, there's nothing to put. No, you can make up things. It gets to a point where there are a lot of companies nowadays that are looking for people that don't have experience because they're a lot more impressionable. But you just need to show that, okay, what skills can I put with detail and relevance, of course, that allows the employer to understand that, okay, even though this person has no work experience, they are someone who wants to learn and can get to grips with the sort of skills that we want to teach them in order to make them how do I say it? A powerful or impactful person in the organization. That's really what most people want, and I don't think anyone else is hiring out of that. As a manager, we're not expecting you to know everything when you come into the role. However, we just want you to have an openness to being able to develop and then being able to, create ideas that are unique and then be accountable for the work that you do. As long as you do that, trust me, in any role or job you go into, you could leave every 3 months, but with that sort of CV, you'll attract a new recruiter who will give you a chance every single time. So hopefully this helps, and yeah, I pretty proud of myself actually.